Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to our town hall. My name is Chris Constantine. I apologize that we're starting a little late. Wanted to make sure we got as many people here to be able to participate as possible. I am the city manager of San Dimas. This is the first town hall I'm holding here at the city of San Dimas, and so we'll see how it goes. Today, the council at one of its last meetings considered an agreement in heading in a direction involving the gold line and the placement of the parking that was currently slated to be placed on our municipal lot on Walnut to be moved and placed on the parking ride on San Dimas Avenue. Clearly, anything gold line related I have read from and watched on videos is an extremely serious matter because of the impacts that come with light rail. Can we reduce the mic? Again, the feed. So, let's try it now. Can everybody hear me? Perfect, thank you. So I started with the city in January, on the 4th of January. So I have not been a part of the more than a decade's worth of discussion, consideration, public input as it pertains to the gold line. When I first arrived that first week in January, I was faced with a dilemma. The gold line was considering approving their supplemental environmental impact report from 2018, one that would have reduced a parking garage with 450 spaces down to just under 300, and making a surface lot placed on our municipal lot. And we believed as a city that if you don't make adequate parking, you're going to force a parking issue into the surrounding community, neighborhoods, and businesses. So therefore, we want to fight and not allow that parking number to be reduced. So we presented a written document with analysis to the gold line. We made verbal testimony to the gold line, and the gold line considered, evaluated, and determined to continue with its supplemental environmental impact report with a surface lot and 200 and I believe 86 spaces to be placed on the city's public works yard, our municipal yard, as well as on several private properties which could necessitate eminent domain of those private properties. If the city didn't proceed and work with the gold line could eminent domain the city's municipal yard. Eminent domain is a form of condemnation, which is a public taking of lands, both public and private, for a purpose, a greater purpose than what the current utilization of that land is. And transit takes one of the highest level of authorities over anything else that's out there. So after coming back from not being successful in ensuring that we had a parking garage at 450, and I understood the analysis that was being done as to what constrained parking does to a transportation system and its intended value and impacts both financially and logistically, we began evaluating and had been started evaluating before I arrived the implications of taking a municipal yard. Clearly, we cannot operate without a municipal yard. We can't service the public, we can't fix our streets, we can't fill our vehicles with gas, albeit you can probably do it commercially for far more expensive. We don't know where to place our equipment that aren't the typical equipment that you would drive on a roadway. So we had to find an alternate site, and we had to design that alternate site to understand which alternate site would fit. So we hired a consultant to evaluate alternate sites and to evaluate the cost and the details of what that municipal yard would look like. That analysis was included in our staff report from early June, and the cost of just land prep, design, and construction was $23 million. That did not include the cost of purchasing land. We looked at quite a number of parcels, and we came down to 7 parcels that would have serviced our needs. All 7 parcels are held by private ownership, in some cases multi-generational. And so, as I discussed earlier about if the gold line wanted our yard and we didn't want to sell it, and they ended up eminent domaining it, the same thing applies to us if we were looking at one of those private sites and said, that's the only location that makes sense to us. We want to work with you on a sale, objectively, and if we can't come to an agreement, we have no choice but to do eminent domain on you, a private property owner, and to take that land from you. That type of process takes a very long period of time. Well, here's the additional constraint that we had. After completing the analysis of how much it would cost to build a new yard, we would have less than 20 months as of now to find a property, build it, and move all our equipment and start operating, which if anything hiccups, it would be hard enough to do it now with everything happening perfectly, but a property owner that may not want to sell their property and want to sell it for far more than its value, instantly your 20-month timeline is gone, and then we would be left with giving up our yard and having no choice but to find an alternate site that is extremely far from ideal. And believe me, we evaluated those sites. We looked at sites like Civic Center Park, the actual park, Sycamore Canyon Park. Imagine going to the park and seeing all our public works equipment inundating the park because it's the only location we can go to. Portable buildings being erected in the park so that our staff can actually reside there because we have no other location to offer public works services. And so now take all that together and get the senior staff together and say, now what do you do? The goal line is at the 11th hour. They've done everything they legally had to do to proceed, and they're on the process of proceeding so that they can stay on their timelines. So we're left with very, very few options, and any of the options are not good. So there is nothing we're going to discuss today that I'm saying I'm trying to convince you that this is a great deal to do this action. There is none of them. The choice we have is to do nothing, in which case the goal line needs to complete their project and take our municipal yard, take private property by eminent domain, and build their parking on the Walnut side of downtown, which from a parking perspective may be okay for the goal line, but terrible for downtown businesses getting access to more parking or furthering a downtown plan across the entire corridor, which would require additional parking. It will still impact every residence and business in the downtown because if we don't have adequate parking on Walnut, where are they going to park? They're going to park across the entire corridor. The residences off of Cataract, they're going to park in downtown on Bonita. It's going to happen if we just do nothing. So we're left with a choice. The choice has to be, of all the evils, can we pick one that is the least of all the evils? And in picking that, which we did, can we engage the public to make sure that as we negotiate with the goal line, are there things we need to consider, to fight for, to work with on the goal line, to find as much of a win-win solution for our community as we possibly can? Now, in any eminent domain, you are compensated for the fair market value of that property. I don't know how many of you have visited our municipal lot. A piece of land, industrial land against the light rail station, an awkward shape with extremely old, dilapidated buildings. But we're not going to get $28+ million for that piece of land. Personally, I estimate that probably more around 7 to 8, which means our community is left with a bill of $20 million to move a yard that we didn't want to move to facilitate the needs of our transportation system in the region. And I think it's unconscionable to go to taxpayers and say, you're going to pay a $20 million bill we didn't ask you to pay for, and we're going to do it in short order. And so as we looked at all the locations that were close, the Gold Line station is on the west side of the block between San Dimas Avenue and Walnut. Here. And it's closer to go to the park and ride, between the park and ride and the station, than it would necessarily be from the parking lot as originally planned. Here, we're looking at 286 spaces. Here, which is our park and ride, we currently have 175 spaces, but very inefficiently laid out. The Gold Line believes we can put approximately 275 spaces there with no parking garage, just a more efficient use of land. The Gold Line has this piece of property, which is currently not utilized, that when all of this is said and done, that property would become a high likelihood of a nuisance property where homeless and others could reside and crime could occur right here on the backside of all these residential properties. These two properties are owned by the city's successor agency, And these two properties, in order to facilitate parking across this corridor, which when combined with the parking ride, would add approximately 310 spaces, so we would have more spaces in this plan than the current plan if we do nothing, is required because within 100 feet of the corridor of a railway, there needs to be a physical median barrier, which then makes turning into this parking area or into this parking area right here not feasible with both north-south directions. So this parcel is needed to allow for access in and out to this parking strip right there. The addition of parking in the downtown corridor also makes feasible a development we're looking here at Bonita and Cataract, a very innovative development that we can't get to the exact parking number that's required to make that project viable. So that's a secondary effect that's positive. But as an overall project, none of it is in our community. I wasn't here in the discussions of do we want the goal line here or not. I know there was a lot of conversation around that. But what we're left with is a very short window, and the goal line did not have to work with the city, but they did. We asked very strongly, we need you to consider an alternative that doesn't put our city in a financially terrible situation, yet still have all the same impacts that we have doing this alternative option. I don't like it, but I think if we do this correctly on the long term with proper parking management, permitted parking to protect the residences that are here, parking management that intensifies pedestrian traffic to the downtown so downtown businesses become even more viable, I think long term we could make this work with minimal impact compared to the old plan. And so what we're asking of you today is we have cards that we're passing out. We want to take questions. We want to take input. And we want to start putting on the board that information so as we enter into discussions with the goal line, we can consider that in our negotiations with the goal line to try to address aspects of these projects that we haven't considered. And so I appreciate you taking the time to come, and we hope that we can get through this with some really good insight. Sherry? Okay, let's do that. So it sounds like we're not going to do the cards, which I thought we were doing originally, so we're going to do, if you have a card, we'll take it, but for the mics, if you can come up and speak at the mic, and then we'll answer the questions the best that we can. We also have here Joseph Raquel and Doran Barnes from Foothill Transit, who currently run the express line that utilizes the park and ride, as well as Chris Berner from the Gold Line to answer any technical questions that that Sherry Garwick, our Public Works Director, and I are unable to answer.
Okay, we did receive a card. So if you have a card, you can hand it to somebody there's Kayla on the side, or there's Brandon over there on the side. If you don't have a card and want to come up and talk into the mic, you can ask your question. But for the person who has the question, Amanda Lee, do you want me to read your question, or do you want to come up here and ask it? Okay. So the question from Amanda Lee is, during phase 2 of Cataract, will the crosswalk across Bonita from north to south Cataract be open? What about phase 3? So in phase 2, the crosswalk from Cataract, the crosswalk across Bonita from north to south Cataract, it will be open. Okay, that was the first part of the question. What about phase 3? So on phase 3, there will be no crossing on Cataract. So there will be no north-south traffic on Cataract. So for Bonita Cataract, for those who, just as a little bit of a background, Bonita Cataract is going to be a very complicated intersection or crossing for the Gold Line to develop. So the focus of tonight's meeting is more on the parking for the station. So we didn't come prepared to go into too much depth on the proposed crossing, but there is the Bonita Cataract crossing has several phases that will be implemented in order to maintain Bonitas, so we don't have to close Bonita. As you've probably seen, Gladstone was closed when the Gold Line went through. All the crossings in the city will at some point be closed while Gold Line does the construction and the necessary improvements to make those crossings safe. So for the Bonita Cataract crossing, there's going to be a bridge at that location, and there's a 4-phase construction schedule. They're currently in phase 1, and then next week potentially they'll be going to a phase 2. But next week, all directions of travel will remain open. See if there's another question. Another question, will separating the parking make security more difficult and expose more residents and businesses than if it was a single lot? Ideally, you have a parking lot and it's all in one location. In this instance, because of the limitation of size, and we didn't want to take any private property, they're just taking an existing parking lot. The configuration is a little bit non-standard, but Monte Vista will actually be closed. Monte Vista, the crossing there, is actually going to be a pedestrian-only crossing, so there will be no danger to pedestrians.
And let me speak to the parking. Law enforcement doesn't stick around and stay in parking lots, right? They're patrolling and they're moving, they're responding to calls for service, and they're attempting to go areas where there are hot spots for crime. And so if we were looking at a problem in one parking lot, yes, we would be able to patrol that parking lot. But when that parking lot's broken into 2 or 3 pieces, if the problem is in one side of the parking lot, the expectation is that the sheriff's department would patrol through all 3 of those parking lots. In regards to security of the parking lots will become property of the Gold Line. So Gold Line will have the responsibility also to secure those parking lots, not making it the city's responsibility to take that on in addition. And that's something we would be asking of the Gold Line to consider.
Can you write on there as a concern is the security? So what Lauren is going to be doing, she works for the Public Works, is she's going to be taking down your concerns and any items that you want addressed, and we'll take those back and work with the Gold Line to address all of those concerns. So the final question is, if the parking is separated, will the same CCTV and lighting as originally planned be provided? So again, the parking lot is Metro. It will not be the City of San Dimas. So it will be constructed according to Metro standards. I will say that the Monte Vista pedestrian underpass will have CCTV cameras. So that is intended. Okay. Does anybody, that's the final, come up, do you want to come up, sir?
My question is, you're not really, with this new proposal, you're not really creating additional parking spots, because the park and ride already has so many parking spaces that are used up every single day. Let's go pre-pandemic. As a matter of fact, it's so busy and it's so crowded that there's a lot of overflow parking that goes to the parking lot north of the railroad tracks. So how do you plan on accommodating all these additional cars that come from people who use the Gold Line? This doesn't make sense to me.
Okay. So that's a good question. So and it's two-factor answer. As the city manager mentioned, there's 175 parking spaces at that site right now. When this is done, they're going to reconfigure the park and ride. And at the park and ride, they're changing it to about 270, 280, and then they're going to get 30 more on the other side. So the difference will be there's 175 now. There'll be at least about 307 after this is done. So about 125 more parking spots. Additionally, in other cities, such as Azusa, when the Gold Line and Foothill Transit had co-located parking structures, the end result was, well, at least in Azusa, was more of the ridership for Foothill Transit declined. And we talked with the director of Foothill Transit to some extent regarding this. So we don't believe that you'll need the same 175 parking spaces for Foothill Transit as you will, as you do now.
How many were planned for the approved plan? How many spots?
There was 289 that were required.
Okay. So you're actually creating the net, it's not a net gain, it's a little bit less.
So there'll be 307 at this.
Okay.
Yeah, a little bit more. Does anybody else have a question? Okay. Okay. Okay.
I think we have to
Okay.
understand that the impacts that are coming right now with no change are the same impacts. If you're improving the spot behind, this is not intended to be, first of all, listen, this is not intended to be an argument or a debate, Master. I'm asking you to come forward and speak one at a time, not 5 people at the same time.
So, actually, we actually have a line. So to be, you know, I guess, good to the people that are waiting in line. If you have a question, can you come to the back and we'll come on up and ask it?
Good evening. I have several questions I'd like to ask. First of all, I'd like to deal with Veterans Day, which is November the 11th. I'm not sure exactly what will be happening at that particular time, but I hope the gentleman from the Gold Line will take that into consideration and mitigate any problems that we might have. We usually have several hundred people come to that, usually about 500 people. Okay. What kind of lighting is going to be in the park and ride? Will any of that lighting affect the monument? In other words, will any of that lighting go into the Veterans Monument? I understand that there's going to be a fee to park in the park and ride. Do you anticipate any problems with people that don't want to pay what is proposed? I think it's $3 a day. Don't want to pay that $3 and go somewhere else to park within the city? You mentioned security of the parking lot, and that's on the list already, but I'd like to know if they're going to have any on-site security during the hours of the use of the park and ride. Also, is there a potential of having a structure, parking structure added to that site after they take possession of the parking lot? And then I'd like to know what the construction time is or period for the start of the street behind Freedom Park, which is that commercial, which will go on to commercial from the park and ride. Chris, how would these be answered? Will they be answered in written form or going to be addressed tonight?
I don't quite know right now. We'll try to answer what we can today. As part of the process, any development process, we have to go through the CEQA, the environmental process. The environmental process is intended to identify the impacts, a lot of which the concerns are being raised today, that the Gold Line will have to identify mitigations to. So we can't engage in that CEQA conversation here.
Okay.
We're trying to answer from the city's perspective what we can on the city side aspect of the information, but the rest of it would be answered in writing during the CEQA process. Okay. So we're going to write items here where we as staff can work with the Gold Line to say, we know that security is an issue. We know that the one-day event is being raised as an issue. We know about the fee and cost and its implications are something for us to consider. And then we know from where there are parking structure, is something that could be contemplated by the goal line after the fact, and that's a conversation we can have with them. We don't have the answers to all of them. That's part of the issue. Right now, we're at the 11th hour of the goal line saying, we're already going out for procurement on all our stations. Everything we were already planning on doing, we don't want to work with you, city, on an alternative because we already worked with you on this years ago. And this was what was decided. We're now coming to them and asking, we can't afford $20 million. There may be a better option here utilizing more parking in an area that's already parking. Would you be willing to work with us? And the answer was yes. And then the council saying, yes, we want to move in this direction, but we have all these other pieces that have to happen before we can. So therefore, we don't have all the answers.
Okay. Obviously, the Veterans Monument will be affected by this. More people will be going through that park. And I have a concern in regards to lighting. And I don't know if the Gold Line people could add some additional lighting to mitigate the problems that they're going to bring to that area.
That's a conversation we're going to have with them because there will be the ingress would be on the backside of the monument.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Take a stab at a couple of them.
Yes, please.
Okay, so again, the design standards for the parking lot will be per Metro standards. So they do have a standard lighting, they have standard configurations for their parking lots. So, and that will come forward in the design and during the environmental. So for the timing of the commercial street construction, right now, at the latest schedule, is that will begin in August. Hey, John Lee, can you throw up the last slide? So this is a conceptual plan of what the configuration of the access, whether it's the park and ride or whether it's Metro parking. This is the configuration of what that access is going to be look like in the future. Again, it's conceptual. But as you look on the right side is San Dimas Avenue. You can see that there is a median there in this picture. Right now it does not exist, but in order to make the crossing meet the California Public Utility Commission's requirements, there has to be a minimum length of median of about 100 foot, which blocks off the current access that buses use. So, okay, so there's that.
Sherry, to that point, irrespective of this new option, in the old option, is this still the case? And
Yes.
Is this entryway still going to be there?
Regardless of which option is done, the entryway has to come off of commercial because of the existence of that median on San Dimas Avenue.
Where's the exit?
The exit would be off of commercial. So that's a one, I mean, it's in and out off of commercial. That's the reason why we got there's gonna be a new traffic signal light at Commercial and San Dimas Avenue. The reason why the Gold Line put that in at no cost to the city is because the access for the buses at the existing park and ride would have to come through that entrance.
So you're gonna block off Monte Vista?
No, Monte Vista will be open as well, but this is the main entrance.
For a car to exit?
So the cars will be able to go left on Monte Vista. So there will be some reconfiguration of the exit on Monte Vista.
When is that, the stoplight, is that gonna work there and you get on commercial? And
Yes.
that's
So that is scheduled to go live January 1st. I mean, July 1st, or July 2nd.
I'm so sorry. For the first question that gentleman raised, is not just about how many number of the parking spots, that will offer, he's worried about the traffic flow.
Okay.
So you guys really didn't address the traffic flow.
Okay.
The potential trends going to place in the corridor of Salinas and, Bonita.
You have a very good point, but I have about 20 people in line, so, yeah, I know, I appreciate it, and Lauren's gonna write it down, but for your neighbors that are standing, waiting patiently in line, okay, okay, and then parking management, again, we have the city has always had a concern, regardless of whether the parking's east of San Dimas Avenue or west of San Dimas Avenue, We were working closely with the Gold Line on a parking management plan, because if you're a commuter, and I've been one, driving to Covina, the parking lot is full, where do you go? You find the next available spot, park there, and then run and catch your train. So we anticipate that that's gonna be happening in this location, that there will be parking. People from the Gold Line are trying to catch the train, park, they're late, they park on Commercial Street. Or they park on north of the tracks in the municipal parking lot there. So regardless of where the parking for the station is gonna be, whether it's east of San Dimas Avenue or west of San Dimas Avenue, that parking management plan needs to be addressed. The city, we've begun incorporating some of the tools for a parking management plan, such as permit parking. So we started implementing some of that. There will be other types of tools that we'll have to implement, and we are working with the Gold Line on those plans. So, next.
Thanks so much, and thank you for having us. I just want to make 2 points and then ask one question. So first, I appreciate that gentleman's remarks. By my math, there is still a net loss here, no matter how we try to present the numbers. So the approved plan actually is more parking than the potential plan. Second is the residents on the local streets around the current park and ride have actually made written complaints to the city already about its management of that parking lot and mitigation measures to prevent excessive traffic, excessive speeding traffic, especially around our small children. Those complaints have seen no results, so forgive me if I'm a little skeptical about the parking management suddenly being improved. And my question is, we keep talking about the 11th hour here that we are working within, but it's my understanding that these plans have been approved for quite some time. So I'm interested to hear what measures or what factors led for the timeline to be either managed or mismanaged to the point where now we are at the 11th hour having this conversation.
So let me address a couple of those. The complaints about the speeding, we'll make sure the sheriff's office with our new traffic unit is made aware of that. I don't know where the complaints went, I've never received them. So we'll make sure they're made aware of that. In terms of the 11th hour, the plans, you're correct, of the current location were not done here at the 11th hour. That's not what's at the 11th hour. We're at the 11th hour of Gold Line needing to proceed. Like, they already have their plans. Things have already been agreed to. We need to go and start acquiring the properties, turning them into parking, and prepare the stations. That's the 11th hour. What's new for the city is the city now finding out the cost associated that we would incur to move our yard, and the timeline associated now with, oh my God, we're in an economy where the price of land is so expensive that we're looking at an astronomical cost if we're gonna move from a current location to a new location, take that property and build the yard like it's supposed to be. That's the piece that's causing the consternation.
So I appreciate that. Just to clarify. Yeah, just to clarify.
Sir, let him follow up. Yes, sir.
To clarify my question there, I recognize that the city is making decisions at the 11th hour. My question is, why didn't we do the research when these plans were approved to know how much it's gonna cost so that we could make those decisions prior to the 11th hour?
I only started 5 months ago. So I can't answer that question about what was done before in terms of the analysis.
And so for the gentleman that had the speeding concerns, and that if you call Public Works, we'll put you on our traffic safety committee, and we do have some new tools.
So we've submitted a written request signed by all the neighbors directly to the city that was denied.
Okay. Well, it's a new, there's a new staff there right now. I don't recall seeing that. So if you try again, we will, or you can talk to me afterwards.
And that exact location again, where is the exact speeding part of that complaint?
So we requested speed bumps and for additional enforcement on West Railway Street. And that was submitted with
And it went through the Traffic Safety Committee?
I can confirm where it was submitted, so yes, I saw it in writing.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us. We're pretty much part of the same block. Just kind of want to reiterate what they've been talking about. We've been dealing with this for a long time. And I know you're new, and I understand that this train is coming full force. But there's something that we need to take care of. These people are here very concerned. We're concerned. Been here for 12 years. We were talking with city council members that were saying that they were going to help us out and try to do something for us. And we've gone nowhere. These letters that have been signed by individuals or parents, grandparents of kids that are around the block, and they've never been addressed. And we're worried because we get thrown under the bus every single time. I've got neighbors that are actually losing property. If you do the proposed parking lot, they're gonna lose property. The city signed off on some permits years ago, and now we're gonna be losing property in their homes because the city didn't follow up back then. And like the gentleman,
What property are you talking about?
we're talking about the north side of Railway Street. If I'm not mistaken, they've actually let us know that they were gonna eminent domain some property in the backyard of our neighbors because the city didn't do their due diligence in regards to following up on permits that were pulled by the building company. And now our neighbors are gonna be losing some property. Like the gentleman said, this plan has been going on for 20+ years. We knew about this. And I understand you're coming in, but to come into a city and not be prepared, sir, at my job, if I'm going for a new position, I'm going ahead years and years of paperwork to make sure that I know what I'm doing. One of the other things that I am concerned is obviously the safety, the home and property theft. If you've seen the history of the Gold Line, from LA all the way out to Glendora, if we have any residents from Glendora, I'd love for them to speak up. The theft, homeless population it's skyrocketing through Southern California. And unfortunately, our sheriff's department, they're overwhelmed. There's nothing they can do. And they try very hard to do what they're good at it. But unfortunately, their hands are tied because the laws won't allow them to do what they need to do. This parking structure is not gonna help out that situation. You're putting additional parking spots in the community. We live off a railway. You're adding additional spots. The overflow is gonna go on commercial. It's gonna go on railway. It's gonna go on Monte Vista. Slowly, it's gonna go on Cataract. It's gonna be endless. And unfortunately, it's just false promises for the last, how many years, Brenda, do you think? 3 years now? 4 years? We've been told we're gonna fix it. We're gonna do it, and those letters have actually gone through the city and they've been ignored. I honestly feel bad for our sheriff's department. They try to do as much as they can. We call them out, and they can't do much. Adding this parking structure into the residential area is not gonna be good. If we could keep it on the approved portion of it, that'd be awesome. Why not have a sheriff's station right in front of the parking structure to monitor, have some kind of say, or actually have some eyes on that parking structure? I mean, that would be awesome. I mean, to be there, to have deputies pulling in and out, that would be great. I mean, it's something. I mean, even if they steal a pen, they can't even go. I mean, you steal a stereo, you can't even go to jail anymore. But I mean, we gotta put pressure on these people. We gotta make sure that tell them that we're here. We can't let them do whatever they want. I mean, that's what's going on throughout California. We're just letting thieves do what they want to do. If you could go back to the traffic, the picture of the proposed lot.
The proposed access?
That was the one that you had, that one right there. Okay, so you said that we're gonna have the exit through Monte Vista as well. Lived there for 12 years. There is a speeding issue on that street. Those guys take off flying out of that lot. I get it. You've been at work for 8, 10, 12 hours. You get in your car, you don't want to be sitting in that parking lot. You don't want to be going, you're speeding out of there. I get it. You're making a one-way in and out for the bus. Why not bring that traffic over to Walnut? Did you see Bonita this evening? It was gridlock coming in. I don't know if anybody saw that, but you had bumper-to-bumper traffic on Bonita. You get those people, nobody's gonna get on commercial. They're gonna get off on Monte Vista as well, and they're gonna jump on Bonita. we have to think about this. I get it, you're saying it's the 11th hour. I'm sorry, I beg to differ, but there's something else that we could have done, and I'm pretty sure that we could come up with a better proposal to fix this.
So is your alternative just leave it where it's at and do nothing?
For me, sir, honestly, you came up with that years ago, the city came up with that years ago, and I think mostly everybody agreed with that. I think that would be the best place for it. You're gonna impact our homes. We take pride in our homes. If you go down Railway, I mean, we've been trying to improve our homes. We've moved in. We've done a whole lot for those homes. And for that parking lot to go there, I'm sorry, but you're just gonna destroy the street. I'm sorry to say, but it's kind of become a lover's lane when some of these kids kind of come over and they just ruin my parking lot, and you call sheriff's department, they can't do anything. I mean, you're gonna add more of that stuff. And it's not right. It's not right for the kids. I can't even go in the front because my kids don't want to ride their bikes because everybody's speeding down the street. And it's sad. And I just don't want the charm to be lost in San Dimas. So greatly appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
And just to be clear, your question was, or your recommendation was to just.
What do you do with traffic? I mean, that's the biggest thing. I mean,
Okay.
I'm really concerned about the traffic. Traffic coming out of that.
So your suggestion was to
Not have the lot there. Let's continue. Let's keep the original proposal. I mean, if everybody's okay with that, I mean, that would be awesome to keep it where it's at, right there. You have the sheriff's eyes right there. You can see these guys there. And it's not, sir, walking. It's gonna help me if I'm getting off the gold line going to the stores. I mean, I need the walk. But, I mean, just, you know what I mean? It's not gonna, a block is not gonna impede from people going to the new construction that's there. If we have it well lit, I mean, the traffic's gonna keep the transients off that walkway there too. If we start getting people walking from the gold line all the way to the new construction, if we get traffic, we're gonna get them out of there. The thing is, if you leave that walkway there, there's no traffic there, we're gonna get just homeless and we're gonna get more people, and it's gonna destroy the city. And, you know, so, yeah. Thanks for your time, appreciate it.
Hello, I've been a resident in San Dimas for 46 years, so I'm a little taken back with, we're invited here to kind of give our feedback. And I was kind of disappointed because it seems like we got at least the residents, maybe a week and a half, probably, notification. I feel like it's more a formality for your books versus it seems like you guys already made a decision. But we're off Commercial Street right there, so you're proposing the main entrance to be right there with traffic, so for two modes of transportation, which is train and bus, how do you expect the residents there to go in and out of there freely with significant amount of traffic? That's one. Excessive parking issues. You guys talking about monitoring. I'm not sure how you would monitor that. Clearly, anybody that lives in that area, when we have parties, we're probably not gonna be able to park down on the other side because we're not gonna have room for parties. Excessive crime rates. That's gonna increase. Statistically, I think anybody could say that that's gonna happen. If so, you guys are saying this is gonna be property of Gold Line, then the city to me is gonna then wash their hands. So once that's approved, or this proposal is approved, what are we gonna do? Who are we gonna complain to? Gold Line? Is Gold Line gonna be around? We don't know. Noise level. Maybe these are not the trains that go choo-choo, but they are trains that have to brake, that have to go speed. That's noise. That's a deterioration within the city. Or the residents right behind that. You guys gotta consider that. Again, like everybody says, traffic is gonna be enormous, particularly people that have been living here for 46 plus years, that are seniors, that love to walk around with their pets. What are we gonna do with that? What are you gonna do to protect the residents that have been here for years? I understand, Chris, you just started, but we've been residents for 46 plus years. Thank you.
Okay, my concern is the parking lot between the park and ride parking lot on the other side of the railroad tracks, where those businesses are. Goodyear, and a lot of the other small businesses. Will that parking lot be affected? If so, how?
So in both scenarios, it will be affected if we don't do proper parking management.
How will it be affected?
Well, if you're trying to find a parking spot and there's not adequate parking, you're gonna drive around looking for another parking spot, right? So I'm gonna end up potentially, instead of landing in a parking ride or parking lot on Walnut, end up in any nearby parking lot that's near the entrance. That parking lot is just kitty corner from the entryway to the platform for the goal line. And so what we have to do is understand the impacts of what's gonna happen under either scenario, the old one or the new one. I'm fine with the old one if we wanna spend all the money and then lose the opportunity to add parking closer to the downtown. Okay, that's fine, if we wanna go that direction. But it will not change the impact to those parking lots if we just leave it alone and leave it as a free parking space for somebody to go. Somebody mentioned, right now you're already filled in that parking ride, and now you're gonna introduce all this parking associated with the goal line. What we need to understand is who's parking in that parking lot. Foothills Transit, the ridership is down to about 15%. You got private businesses that are down the street that have a significant number of employees that are now starting to park there. Across the street, the Roadies parking lot that's not adequate for that shopping center, they're parking there too. It's completely uncontrolled parking. There's no restrictions, time, money, nothing. So people can park freely anywhere. When you can park freely anywhere, you start to park first where it's convenient, and then as close as possible that's open. So we're gonna see that impact if we're not good about doing parking management.
Yeah, well, specifically, my wife has a business there, and she has a lot of elderly people that frequent her business. They are not gonna be able to walk blocks and blocks to go to that business.
We need to protect the parking in front of our residences and our businesses so that residents that live there and their guests can park there in the residence, and that folks that want to patron the businesses can park in front of those businesses or on the backside. That's what we have to do.
All right.
All right, two quick questions. One is, was there an allocation made against the original EIR? And, or did that shift with the supplemental, or are we basing it completely off the supplemental? And then the second question is just, would it be possible to change the code to allow the city traffic engineer to green code or time certain parking spaces around the area that might be affected?
Okay, so this will have to go through a new environmental process. So they'll have to start again. So there'll be an entirely new comment period. There'll be flyers sent out to everyone in the neighborhood. So that process will start over again for the parking station.
And how does that affect the original budget?
The original budget for, it costs the goal line more.
Right. Right. So I think we've got, what, 4 times, so we're subtracting a little bit, but does it get reallocated? Is it sort of a zero-sum thing, or does it get shifted around from a whole, or does it get, go ahead.
So I can't talk to goal line budget, but they do have some contingency monies I would anticipate to allow for items like this. So, then your second question was?
Yeah, the second thing is just, I think currently the traffic engineer, because of the way the code is written here, doesn't have the ability to time parking spaces, even if they're city spaces. I think if we change the code, that will enable him to do that, and we could green code certain parking, like we have parking that's right across the street from the parking right over there. So if we could time it, that'd be nice. But I think the code needs to go into it needs to be added to the civil code first, and then the city engineer has the ability to do that.
So the city engineer and the public works director does have the ability to implement time parking restrictions.
Oh, okay. All right.
So we do have that currently, and we just added another ability for the city council to implement permit parking requirements. So if you're a resident, it would give preferential parking to residents.
Yeah, we just like to prevent overnight parking.
Okay.
So the preferential parking, would you explain that again? To
So
residents?
There's different tools that we have. For a business, you wouldn't want to give permit parking per se. You'd want to do more time restriction, as the gentleman mentioned. But for residential areas, you don't really typically do time restricted parking. you would do perhaps a permit parking where the resident, it's resident-only parking. So say on Commercial Street or on Railway Street.
Okay, so I live in a mixed use, right?
Okay.
And behind me, they're all condos.
Mhm.
So how would you control, so, so part of us is resident, part of us is business?
Mhm.
So how would you, you know?
So that's one, your area is one of the items that we're
I
working
know.
on with our parking management with the gold line, because you do have a very complicated area.
Right,
And we have to allow for commercial use.
right,
And there's also some areas that are private, and it's private residential use as well.
Right.
So that is one of the areas that's very complicated that we are working, and there is a portion of the plan that to address that, we have not completely worked out all of the details. But you are on our
yeah,
concern.
okay.
And that is regardless of where the parking lot ends up, okay? So you're on,
Yeah, we're
yeah,
overflow
you're
parking.
gonna have, yeah,
Well, we already have, you know, I mean, he's got a business and I also
Right,
have the
and
rail
you
side,
are-
and we say, where are they gonna park?
you are our areas of concern. And
Right.
before this, we got with the gold line and marked out entire swaths of the city
Right.
that we felt were gonna have parking impacts due to gold line. So, and the gold line has agreed to work with us on those parking management areas.
So that little, I'm sorry, just one word. The little area that, what is that called? That area that the gold line, the little
change order
square.
about the Veterans Memorial.
No, you know, that little square that belongs to them now? Is this the entry to the,
Yeah, with
Well, the-
regards to our parking, some of it is city, some of it is ours. So there's some of it we might be able to control ourselves, not very
Okay.
much, but the front is all city parking.
Right, so there's some of it's private, some of it's,
right?
but regardless, we will have people trying to park in your private area. So that's the conversation that we've had with the gold line is we need to have a plan to address that
Right.
impact. So,
Good luck to me.
Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm one of the residents that's on Commercial. I live on Commercial, and just like one of the other ladies said, she's been there for 40-something years. I've been there for 54 years. And part of the problem that's happening now, and we don't even have the gold line going right now, is traffic coming down Commercial. And I'm not talking about slow traffic. We had a little child hit just last week by a car flying down Commercial. Now, if you put the exit and the entrance on Commercial, when people are trying to get in there running late, they're gonna fly down Commercial. And that's putting our children in danger. Now, I understand that the city has a budget and they don't wanna spend the money, but does the city consider our children more important than their budget?
so there are tools that we can implement to address speeding in the neighborhood. One of the gentlemen mentioned was speed humps. That's a program that the city actually pays for if the streets have to meet certain qualifications, because we don't want to create a negative effect to safety by, if it's a very steep street, you can't put speed humps. There's some engineering design criteria that are required. But if the neighborhood wants speed humps, there's a petition process that they can go through, and we can look at Commercial Street for speed humps as well as Railway Street for speed humps.
But the question is not the speed humps only, it's the traffic. If we're coming out of our driveways, we're gonna hit traffic. We gotta watch out for cars coming down the street. It's just a lot of traffic. Even right now on Commercial, and the light's not working, the signal's not working, it's still traffic. It's so many cars coming down Commercial now that it doesn't even seem like a neighborhood. It seems like more like a business street. And it's not just small cars, it's not just cars, it's trucks that comes down that street. And so when you put the entrance and the entrance and the exit there, what do you think they're gonna do? And then not only that, but when the overflow, when the parking lot is full, because it's full now, they're gonna be parked right in front of our houses.
Okay, again, whether the parking lot the parking for the station is east or west of San Dimas Avenue, the access has to come off of Commercial, and that's because of the CPUC drawing requirements or requirements for safety at the crossing.
Okay, so you're saying the exit of the parking lot. I'm saying if you don't put the parking lot there, If that's not the
Okay.
parking lot, then it will not be an exit on commercial.
Okay. Well, for the park and ride, there is.
Right,
No.
no, for the parking lot right now, it's not an exit on commercial. It's an
No.
exit on San Dimas Avenue.
What Sherry is saying, though, when the gold line goes, forget the new option, go back to what was existing. When the gold line goes into effect, they have to make a 100-foot barrier on San Dimas Avenue that would block the entryway, the current entryway into the parking ride. And it already has been decided that that entry will then be on commercial. That's not changing in either scenario.
So then you're taking part of someone's property, that last house there, or are you taking a part of the park?
It'll be part of the park. They are taking part of the park. Can you go, John, to the image that zooms in on the, not that one, the one? Okay. So, yes, actually. So, here's San Dimas Avenue. The station's gonna be right here. So, there is a median right here, and you kind of see in this drawing, it's a little bit difficult, but the entrance to the San Dimas Park and Ride is gonna actually come off of off of Commercial Street. So right now, it comes in right here, which is blocked by the median. So it has always, it is coming in off of Commercial Street, even if the parking is over here. It still has to come in off of Commercial Street.
But we won't have MetroLink, I mean, the Metro bus and the Gold Line people coming off. We
Right.
will have just basically the bus.
Right, and the buses too will actually have to come in through and enter off of Commercial Street. So even if it remains a parking lot.
But I need to mention, and Doran is here, he can speak to this, the ridership is down already, much to do with COVID. However, there is no indication of knowing the impacts that once the gold line becomes active, how that's gonna impact and change the ridership on Foothill Transit. And so that plays all into the amount of traffic that's gonna occur in that area. What I'm hearing, that we need to actually put this down, because we need to have these this needs to come out when the CEQA process happens. Speed, quantity, parking on the surrounding roadways is what are the big issues that we need to address. And parking, not just on those streets, but parkings that impact the businesses also. What measures can we put in place that minimize the impact on residents and business goers, but make it unattractive for non-business and residents to want to go there? And I'm willing to consider even evaluating changing street, if that's even an option from an engineering perspective. We need to look at that. And that's something, because the impacts are going to be caused by the goal line. That's something that the mitigations need to be discussed in that context.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. When I look over there, I see all the cons versus pros. So I think you know where the neighborhood is going, right? We want to stick to the original plan. Yes.
If I can say that if we passed out arrows, they'd probably be all in us right now. I understand.
My question to you, City Manager, did you ever think about swapping the facilities on the east side over to the west side, and leave the park and ride and part of the station there on the east side? Was that ever considered? Meaning, bring all your facilities. You were saying about your trucks, all the landscaping trucks, that you can't find a lot because it's very expensive. Did you ever consider that?
Yes, the infrastructure cost, the undergrounding, the buildings, the structures are still that cost is still there. You lose the acquisition cost, which is that piece the 23 million didn't even include acquisition of land. So by doing the swap, you're saying, well, now you don't have to worry about the acquisition of land because you already own it. Great, that 5 million's out.
Sure.
You still got the 23 million, and if you take out the amount of money that the value of our current property is, you're still looking at more than $10–12 million incurred of cost. That's point number one. And like I said, none of these are ideal. The second one is, by removing that parking from the backside of downtown and next to the station and close enough to further development west on Bonita, you're then eliminating parking availability in that corridor where we know we need to be increasing parking availability so that you spread the traffic impact further along Bonita. Otherwise, you're going to concentrate it in a very small area, and that's not what we want to do.
I totally disagree, but that's your point. And again, the neighborhood has spoken. There's going to be an increase in crime. There's going to be more traffic. Our kids are susceptible to getting hit. My parents who are here have been in San Dimas for close to 50 years. Now, we've known a lot of the mayors here, Chris, as you may understand, and we've always been fighting for quality of life. That's the most important thing. And what you're doing by saying, well, you know, it's going to be cost us more money, just put the traffic over here in the neighborhood, that's not right. You know, first, just a little bit of history. There on San Dimas Avenue and Commercial, the city wanted to they're proposing some apartments, and the neighborhood fought it. And look what we have now, mixed use, right? Much better, residential homes right there, better for the neighborhood, right? And at one time at Pioneer Park, the city wanted to take that away from the neighborhood to put a skate and ride. We fought it for the quality of the life. What would happen with that skate and ride right now? It'd be empty, just like the bowling alley across the street, right? No people there. So what we're fighting here is for the quality of life. And what you're doing is you're putting a price tag on that for the neighborhood. And like my sister said, and some other people said here earlier, you didn't give us enough notice. Otherwise, this would have been jam-packed with more people talking of keeping the first plan. And the gentleman said, we had many, many years to plan this out. This last minute thing about you're concerned about it's gonna cost a lot of money, shouldn't be an issue now. We should move forward with the first plan and keep it that way.
So are you presuming that if we do the first plan, you're not gonna have the impacts in those neighborhoods?
Correct, because it's over there on the other side where the sheriffs are just across the street. They could take care of, they could watch, if you want to go back to the site. And the walking distance isn't great, isn't much. I grew up here in San Dimas in the elementary schools. I was walking from X-Ran home, I was walking to San Dimas High. The walking distance from San Dimas Avenue to the other street is not that far.
So the configuration of the current station, the current plan, if we do the parking on Walnut means, if I'm gonna still park in the parking ride as a Gold Line rider because it's closer to the entrance of the platform. So
Well, you're gonna have most of your parking over here on the east side, right?
Well, you would have the flat lot there, but what you're saying basically is I, who am coming from some other community outside of San Dimas, will drive here, go into the parking ride on Commercial, drive around and realize there's not enough parking because there's only 175 spaces.
Correct.
Drive back out onto Commercial to get out and drive around to find parking until eventually I find something.
Well, I think if the city was smart enough, you would have a lot of signs, right? To direct people, the public, all the people that are gonna be parking to the east side, right? I would assume that would be part of the plan, right? I mean, she agrees. City engineer would agree that she would put enough signs to direct people to their correct parking structure, which is on the east side. So there's a lot of ways to mitigate this, Chris. I think I'm hoping that you could hear the neighborhood. And my question, first of all, is down the line, this is something that could be appealed to the city council if we go with your proposal.
The city council has already authorized proceeding in this direction to negotiate, and what we're trying to attempt is to
Okay.
identify the issues that we can negotiate with the Gold Line.
Okay.
Now, on these issues that are critical, we may come to an impasse with the Gold Line, I don't know. But we're trying to gather that information, and I know people are not happy, I get it, I totally get it. And you could attack me, you could attack staff, you could attack previous administrations for, why didn't you think about this 20 years ago? But the issue is, we can do nothing right now, and that impact is still going to occur in those neighborhoods.
No, it's not. I think if you plan it correctly, keep the parking at the original proposal, put enough signs to direct people to park there at the first choice of parking, and it won't impact the rest of the neighborhood. As my parents have been living there close to 50 years, I grew up here in San Dimas, and I sure don't want that quality of life to be reduced because we screwed up on the planning stage of it, and we decided it's going to cost us a few $1 million more. So again, one last question: is there going to be another meeting like this? Because again, as few people stated, there was not enough time that was given. My parents just received this notice a week ago, and so I know you have to, like my sister said, you have to write down that you did have this meeting to show the city council that, yeah, you did open it up to the neighborhood, but I guarantee you, if you would have given us enough more notice, you would have had a lot more people here to talk about this.
Let me just correct one thing. This re-meeting was not required. It's not a box we're checking off for the city council.
Well, that's what they all say. I'm sorry to say that.
I understand, but you're hearing it from the person that scheduled the meeting. The discussion, the issue, the legal, the CEQA process is when you're gonna have the ability to appeal the impacts associated with any change that's occurring. And that has to be documented and responded to by the Gold Line.
Sure, sure. So are you gonna give us enough time next time for another meeting?
The CEQA timelines are defined, so yes, you would be getting notice of the impacts.
Okay, you didn't answer my question, but thank you.
You asked
Thank
if you were gonna get notice of another meeting at some point, and the answer was yes. What's the
We're gonna give enough notice.
45 days for comment?
Is 45 days to comment on the impacts before its discussion adequate enough? Okay, then you're getting notice.
Hi. Hi, my name is Jim Witt. I've been asked to come up and ask a couple questions regarding the homes that are located on the north side of Railway that back up to the new proposed parking lot. Initially, when all the negotiations were taking place 5 years ago, and there were some meetings, and there was a town meeting a couple years ago like this, where you did some presentations, Gold Line did some presentations. We were told that the elevation of the bridge would be 27 feet above the existing tracks. And we didn't like it, but okay, there you go. But now we notice that elevations are currently being raised up just a little bit, almost to the property wall of those residents on the north side. Oh, thanks, you put up that parking lot area. So there were 4 brand new houses built that back up to the commercial building on the east side of that block. They all have block walls, and then some of the other remaining homes, like 5 or 6 homes down on the west end of Railway, have cedar fencing and stuff like that. Those walls are currently like 5-foot block walls. You can stand at the back of them and look over them at eye level. But now that the grade has been built up to, in some areas, almost 3 feet, those walls are going to be rendered almost ineffective. The way we looked at it today, we can see the wall is only about 3 feet above the grade. So when I'm assuming this is going to happen as diagrammed there, will the city rebuild the walls and fences back there to make them impassable by pedestrians or people who park in those parking lots? The residents along there have already experienced people hopping the fences to either get away from something or just a shortcut through a neighborhood, and they're going through backyards. So we feel they need new 6 or 8 foot walls to go up. Since view is no longer an issue, the railway elevation is going to eliminate the view anyway. I think some people would just as soon have an 8-foot wall back there, but I know that's not standard for residential. And then my other question, which maybe you could answer right now, would be the current bus parking lot there. Is that city property, or is that already owned by one of the other agencies?
That is currently city property.
Okay, so is that going to be taken by eminent domain, or is the organization going to buy that land from the city?
The plan is that they will buy the land from the city.
And that land being sold could theoretically offset purchasing another lot somewhere. But like you said, people who have the land want premium dollars for it. And it could force the city into being in a position of saying, well, we're going to take it eminent domain and pay you what we say it's worth, right?
Well, on your question on the walls too, and can you write that down as a, so the Gold Line does install fencing and walls to protect their property as well and provide a buffer between adjacent properties. And one of the things that we do as a city is we do plan check on to make sure that the plans are consistent. So that's, we will look for that on the plans.
How soon do you expect that you could have an accurate diagram of what's going to happen there? Number of parking spaces, and also within the park and ride area, because clearly that the park and ride artist conception that we've been showing has less parking spaces than what currently exists there. So it would be good if we could know that. I know you follow certain things, like we have to have so much grass and so many trees and all this kind of thing.
Right, and so if this becomes a metro property, they have to follow the metro guidelines, which are slightly different than the city, or actually different than the city. But as part of the environmental process, I believe they would have a drawing that they would send out. So it's gonna take them some time to do the drawing, but it's part of the environmental process when they notify you.
And then my final comment, and I'll get the heck out. If you look at all the stations that exist between Pasadena and Glendora, you see the Pasadena station has an off-site parking structure. I don't know how many cars are in there. See, I'm trying to think of them in line. The Arcadia one, the one in Irwindale, and then Azusa, and then, or Glendora, I'm not sure which. Oh yeah, Azusa has their own, the Glendora has their own. I think anybody who's tried to use the line from any of those stations can pretty much say it's woefully inadequate parking, even though it's a big, huge parking structure. I don't know how many cars each one has, but I would expect that that will happen here too. And the line has always said, as we develop further and further and further, it'll take a little bit of the weight off of the next station. That hasn't happened. Those stations are full every day and people are having to scamper around on the street to get street parking. Something to think about.
Thank you.
I live on East Commercial Street in the San Dimas Village Walk, where the condos are. And so the businesses are in the front. We're on Commercial and San Dimas. And we've had an increase in homelessness and crime. Our car was broken into a couple months ago. They're talking about the overflow. There is no parking permits in that condo community. People go in there and park in there all the time. So I'm assuming that's gonna get worse. How are we gonna control that?
So I don't have an answer for you right now, but I will say, regardless of where the parking for the station ends up, that's gonna be a problem. So we are looking at it and we are working with the Gold Line. We're in the process of reviewing a parking management plan. The initial submittal, we had several significant comments of one of the comments was what you just addressed. So we don't have the answer right now, but we do acknowledge that that is a concern regardless of what happens here.
Because there's no gate, it's open.
Right,
Anyone
absolutely.
can go in there, and we've had issues already, so I can only imagine after
Absolutely.
that.
Absolutely. So.
Hi. This is my first time in one of these hearings. So I just wanted to first appreciate you guys holding this, and then thanks everyone for coming. I'm gonna be nervous, so excuse me. So I just wanted to understand what's the purpose of this hearing, because if the city has made up their mind and has already approved of the supposedly proposed plan, then what is the purpose of this? And if you're not going to take in account of what we're saying, and do we even have a way of, of disapproving the proposed plan if we wanted to just go forward with what was already set? Is there a possibility?
So the council approved proceeding with negotiations for the sale of that property to be able to facilitate this. But that negotiating doesn't mean it's just a sale. It allows us to be able to negotiate points in that sale, requirements that we're looking to. And so what we're trying to gather and make sure we're understanding of the issues and impacts, so that when we can find the opportunity of something that's not in, let's say, the CEQA process, that would be mitigated during that process, that we can make it as a condition of the sale.
So I think I'm not as optimistic of our effort here, to be honest, hearing what you said. The issues and the concerns are far more than the pros in terms of the residential perspective. I've never really heard a city planning department would put a commercial use parking lot away from the commercial buildings where offices and warehouses are at, towards where the residential area is, where kids and seniors are mostly residing in. So that's very odd to me. I feel like maybe you guys, it's worthwhile, you guys hire a consultant, there was thousands of dollars spent on the consulting fee based on the records online. Maybe you guys should analyze the approved plan of the current landmass and see if it's efficient of those machinery being parked there. Perhaps you guys can section off the current space and then still build a parking lot. Maybe that's 2-story or 3 stories higher and still offer the parking spaces and kind of divert the traffic around from the residential area and the parks and the kids and the city, the city bus is fine, the express bus is fine. And also going back to your ridership, I feel like there's news talking about companies are requiring people to go back to their office in September. So I expect the ridership is going to go up. So I think having that commercial street to have handle the express bus, the parking, 275 cars in that parking space, and as well as the inflow, in and outflow of the traffic and the residences and the retail, the businesses and the people that go into the cafes, it's just insane for me to how are you gonna handle all of that in a daily basis with one street light and one lane that's very tiny, it's not even a 2-lane. So I think the city engineer or some sort of consultant would also need to give us a plan, a better plan for that. And the third point I wanted to make is, excuse me, is that I'm new to San Dimas. It means a lot that I hear a lot of people have been here for 40+ years. I think San Dimas is, I think there was so much potential. But San Dimas is quite a high traffic city. There's 210, there's 57, and a 10. We have Metrolink, and then we have freight train, and then now we have Gold Line. And then we have helicopters circling around above us every day. We have 2 fire stations, and we have multiple sheriff stations, and yes, and a lot of sheriffs. So I just feel like you guys need to start hearing the people that are living in the city. Otherwise, you're gonna lose traffic. You're gonna lose traction of the city. The $23 million you're able to save from the proposed plan, you're losing a larger value of our residential value, our real estate value. People coming in to buy into the city, living in the city, paying higher taxes to the city. Our residential value, higher property tax, those are all potential income too. So I urge you guys not to only think about one thing one way and just have a better, longer, bigger plan and better perspective wholly. And I don't think $23 million is a lot to lose, given 5-10 years later of the potential city gain, the income, the residential value, the retail business, that we're gonna be able to make it back. That's just my comment.
I want to compliment you on the creativeness of the solution where the existing lot is. My first preference is a 450 parking structure at the Walnut location. That's my first preference. That's what was planned originally back about a decade ago. That's what was my expectation of location. The fact that it converted to a flat lot with less than 290 spaces is something that we can't stop. But I'm more than willing to fight, and I know the city is more than willing to fight the Gold Line, with no disrespect to the Gold Line. But the issue has to be, do you want to fight and then we lose and not address any of the other issues that we have some control over? Or do we understand that that fight might be lost and try to identify how we can mitigate the impacts that we can't control? That's the question. And I can't say that one's better than the other. I don't know. But the bottom line is, in an eminent domain action, the timelines don't change for you in terms of how long for you to get out of that location. The dollar amounts don't necessarily change much at all to get to the drasticness of the dollar amount. And then you're going to be left with, when you finally realize that you're not going to win it, an even shorter timeline to figure out, what do you do now? And those are the risks that we have as a community. So
I understand, but construction always delays. I'm not sure if the negotiations also worthwhile with the city residents and not so much fighting back to goal line. I think the negotiation really should take place to goal line and either give us more time or a better solution or a lesser requirement. So I think I understand what you're trying to do with us, but I also feel like there should be a better fight instead of saying, you know, we have already lost here, so what can we salvage with you guys looking at all the impacts and the concerns and the issues with the proposed plan? And it's not even gonna be called proposed, because it's not a proposal anymore if it's already done. It's just gonna be a solution, problem-solving hearing.
the sale still has to go to council, and the public still has an opportunity to convince the council to not make the sale.
So is it not possible to build a higher structure, because it's all, higher, instead of, you don't have the surface, but you have the height, you have the air. So why can't you build up instead of wide?
We can, if we pay for it.
And have you guys analyzed how much that would cost and do the comparisons there?
Undergrounding at $40,000 a space.
Can't you go up? Because it's all commercial and office buildings there.
Going up at $25,000 a space, yeah.
I mean, to be honest, I don't know how many population there is living in the city, but if everyone's okay with $10, couldn't we make up for the difference? I mean, I'm seriously thinking about the longer impact and not just this short-term solution here. Thank you. There's more people. Thank you, guys.
Well, I say thank you for the meeting. It really helps, you know, hear everybody else, your presence too. You know, 10 years ago, I bought my building, nobody behind me, nobody in front of me, many homes. I think you can see where I'm getting at is that you want to save money, you're doing the best you can, but pretty soon later on, you know, there's going to be so many more people. Traffic's going to be worse, gas will be worse. If there's any possibility, I love your first vision, big, you know? I think if there's any way to negotiate that, it's gonna cost money, but it would cost 10,000 times more if you have to correct that and do that later. So I would suggest that there's an opening where you can, you know, negotiate with that. It would be a good thing. You know, it's just a suggestion, so. Thank you. Well, thank you.
Good evening. I've lived in San Dimas for 20 years now, and during most of that time, the Gold Line has been coming out from Los Angeles. And time after time, the city of San Dimas has dropped the ball on the Gold Line. I was in this room about a decade ago. The wires hadn't even been strung to Sierra Madre Villa. The subject was, where are we going to put the station? And there were three proposals. There was a lemon plant, there was across the street from the lemon plant, and then there was the existing park and ride. Somebody that night suggested, why don't we put it there, which is the right place to put it. And it's been there for 10 years. And now the city has dropped the ball again. We had decided that back then, and the city turned around and put in all those condominiums from Fox Construction. We could have been using that land. We can't replace that. But to say, oh, whoops, we've had all these years to plan, and well, we're $20 million off, and we just can't do anything about it, but we've got all these alternatives. Plan B is terrible. What traffic engineer is going to approve having the station on one side of a busy street and the park and ride on the other side of a busy street? This is crazy. Your numbers don't add up. There's 177 slots in the existing park and ride. You said 175, but I counted them today. I'm not counting the motorcycle slots. Exact number doesn't make any difference. Before the pandemic, that's been full. After the pandemic, it's going to be full again. It is almost now. Plus, we're going to get some cars coming down from Via Verde. That's spilling out over to both sides of Via Verde, up into the neighborhoods. We're getting the same thing, and it's going to get worse. We're going to have far more than 175 cars and far more than 175 people. So twice a day in the rush hour, all these people have got to go across San Dimas Avenue and then come back in the other rush hour. If you're out on Bonita, we got these nice flashing lights. They're a great thing. People can cross the street. I was there yesterday afternoon. One person crossed, that was fine, but before they got across, somebody else came the other way, and then three people, considerable backup, I think about 6 or 7 cars. We're talking over 177 people going across San Dimas. It's insane. You gotta sharpen your pencil. It is not acceptable for you to say, whoops, we got 20 million. Now, the original plan already approved by the people of San Dimas, already approved by the Gold Line, has a parking structure on the other side of the street. That parking structure is supposed to hold, what was originally 480 cars. On the west side of the street, it's 177 spaces. You're saying that we can bulldoze the trees and restripe things, and I don't know what, I don't see a plan for it, but you're going to come up with another 100 places. That's still short. It's not enough. You're going to have to put a parking structure there to handle all the cars. Or if you're going to put the parking structure, put it on the east. Okay, I'd like a show of hands. How many in the room tonight favor putting it, the new proposal, on the west side? How many favor the original plan, keeping it on the east side? I hope the secretary reports that.
Hi, I just wanted to let you know that we're new to San Dimas, but my husband and I grew up in the area. He was born and raised in Pomona, so when we moved to San Dimas, it was really, it was a dream for us because it's a little town. We wanted to get out of Pomona, downsize, and we're affected. We're right on the corner of Cataract and Railway, so that parking lot would be right in back of us. We're, you know, we are just, with a new proposal, we were just shocked. First of all, I sympathize, but because you took on this new project and it fell into your hands and suddenly a lot of money. But you know, when we bought our property, we had to deal with the city. We bought it at a certain price, and then the city insisted that we put $20,000 more, not only on the roof, but all around, and oh well. We wanted San Dimas, we moved here, and this is what we had to do. We went to the city one time, we had to fight the city because they didn't like the fence that we put up, and so I have to say that I thank the Lord that we went to the city council meeting and we won. I couldn't believe it. We had a sympathizer that we kept our fence, we covered it, and it looks really nice now. But all I'm saying is, though I sympathize with you, it's your problem. You guys made the decision. It's a lot of money, but I think you have to come up with something because a lot of the residents are going to be affected. And it is not a good thing. So, I mean, it costs us money and we went ahead, we did it. We want to stay in San Dimas, we had to put that money out. So I think you guys need to figure out a way to put that money out and keep it where it was originally planned. Thank you.
Hi, I live in San Dimas and I do business in San Dimas, and entire my life I've been in San Dimas. I think all this neighbor, the complaint is, we know the Gold Line is coming regardless. The station is there regardless. All the mistake been done, not by you, during the time happened. And we know all these people, they want the best benefit the community. And what we're trying to ask, do something that benefit everything. The way I see the plan on commercial, they going regardless. Gold Line gonna go there. So if you can make a plan somehow that work for resident better, benefit everybody, I think that's what the plan wants. People want it. Gold Line is coming, a station is there, a station is not moving. A station gonna be there. And all transit come by the station. They don't come by parking lot. Transit gonna come from God knows where. They're gonna get off this station, the other station. Hey, the crime is there. It's gonna come regardless. We gotta face the fact, it's coming. Gold Line never give a statistic that how much crime came by the station coming to the city. And Gold Line is here, a station is there, it's not gonna move. We gotta face it, but what we're asking, city gotta plan it, secure it, lighting, I can't complain about the lighting right now because I look at the whole city, thanks to the city, that there is not even one post that there is no lighting on. It's as bright as it gets. But for the parking lot, I don't know what's their plan and what's gonna be. I think we all want better for the city. We want all our neighbors be safe in there and doesn't affect their living and their kids. That's what I think we're asking. If you can make it work anyhow, that benefit all the city residents, we're for it. Thank you.
Hi, I've been at San Dimas and a business owner, which I'm not anymore, so that makes me comfortable to come and speak with you. For, I don't know, maybe 30 years. The problem is, I know that this is gonna cost the city a lot of money, and I feel bad about that. But I've been looking at the Gold Line for many, many years at what it's gonna do to San Dimas and the Via Verde area, because these people travel right up San Dimas Avenue. We've got a lot of homeless there already. We have people living behind the Girl Scout Center. We've got people going to the dollar store in diapers. You're bringing that to the community that's down there. Maybe you don't respect that community. Maybe you don't respect it because it isn't the $1 million community. But what you're doing is you're hurting everybody. And I know that the city's received a lot of money for many projects. So what you need to do is figure out, let's be a city. Let's be together. Let's enjoy all the events and everything we do. But we need you as a city planner. We need your help right now. And if there's a money problem, I feel bad. But please, please don't hurt the people of the city with what you're doing. It's just too close to too many people, and it's hurting too many businesses on that street because they can't get their people in because of all the cars. It's just the wrong place to be. And there's so many people retiring there and seniors. Nobody's gonna wanna go to those stores. I mean, it's just wrong, and I just ask you, please. I know about the money, but there's gotta be a way. A lot of money has been given for all this upgrading, for blah, 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 all over through the years. Now, think about the people, and so we can be a community again, please. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Constantine. I've heard some confusion out here in regards to the existing plan for parking and the proposed plan for parking. Could you enlighten us as to, there's no private property being taken with the new parking proposed versus the existing parking where not only we have to move the city yard for how many $20+ million or more, but people could lose homes or businesses under the existing plan. And I don't know if anyone here would want to lose your home or your business. Okay, excuse me. It's my turn to talk. Thank you, Chris.
If I understand your question correctly, the existing plan right now on Walnut would necessitate the taking of private property that has
Yes,
improvements on it.
that's my question versus the new plan.
Yes, so the existing plan requires the taking of private property, and it would require the forcible taking of the city's property if we don't agree to it. The new plan would eliminate the need to take that private property and almost all the public property. There is one little sliver that's needed, that's minor, that we own, that would need to be taken, but there should not be any private homes or businesses taken under the new plan.
Thank you.
So let me, it's a difficult topic, I get it. And for me, if I take the economic development hat off my head, which I've been an economic development planner for a long time, where transit and mass transit brings economic vitality in certain areas, I would say the right solution is not to have a Gold Line station at all in our community. However, that is not an eventuality for us, and I understand that. Somebody raised the issue of, even though I've been here 5 months, you should have done your research. I did do my research, did a lot of it. The council acknowledged it when they were hiring me, looking at reports, watching council meetings, I get it. Not 10 years, not 15 years. And would I have made the same decisions then that they did? I don't know, because I don't know all the information that's on the table. We have 2 stations that are close enough on either side that are adequate to reach, and so if you wanted to get on the goal line, you could. But right now, we will be having a station in our city. It's going to be right there. It's not moving under any scenario. It's going to be closer to San Dimas Avenue, and we know people take the path of least resistance. They're going to park as close to the San Dimas Avenue as they possibly can, regardless of what we try to do. They're going to figure out a way to try to do that. The issue for us, and I'm glad to see we have the Mayor Pro Temp and the Mayor here in person, council members like John Ebner, Ryan Vienna, and Eric Weber online that are not here in attendance but watching the meeting. They're hearing all this input. The job we have is to try to take what we've gotten on the list and in our notes that are impacts, find ways to see how we can integrate that in our engagement with the Gold Line and see how much mitigation we can make. If it's not enough for the council, when it goes to the council to sell the property, they are not required to sell that property. There is still an option there. However, the council talked about the impacts and implications of going with the existing plan. And when you ask about, this was planned a long time ago, yes, the city dropped the ball. We did. We said, let's put it on Walnut and we'll talk about the cost of moving our yard later. Well, when was the later? The later's now, when the Gold Line is getting ready to proceed with purchasing materials and constructing the parking lot and doing all the environmental that they need to do on the parking lot. So I apologize on behalf of the city that planning wasn't done in advance. But I'm stuck with it as the city manager. And a council that believes fiscal stability is one of the most important things we should have, in addition to quality of life and a variety of other very important areas of quality in our community. And so, yeah, there's going to be impact. And if there's ways to find ways to mitigate it, if it costs us money, we should be looking at that. It's not just about money. It's not just about spend 20 million, 23 million, don't worry about it, Chris. 23 million represents about 80 to 90% of our general operating for an entire year. And I can't in good conscience go to the taxpayers and say, you go pay for it community-wide to make this impact. I expect the Gold Line to do right by the city to the extent that they can, and for us to supplement that where we can to mitigate it. But we can't get rid of the station. So we expect we will have this discussion again at the council meeting when a purchase agreement would come before them. The discussion again to occur, should that action take place, during the CEQA process, where the public will have the opportunity to speak directly to the impacts associated with the change, in the hopes that through that process the risks are mitigated. And that's where we are. I'm sorry that there was only 1 week notice for this meeting, but this meeting wasn't a planned meeting and it wasn't a required meeting. It was one that we felt we had to do. And the timeline we had to come up with an alternate option, this wasn't a 5-month, we had 5 months. Chris, you started here, you knew the day you started, you needed to fix something. You had 5 months, why didn't you fix it? The window we had between knowing that the Gold Line needs to trigger proceeding and having another option considered was extremely short. They didn't even want to do it. We begged them, just listen, let's talk about it, consider it. And they did, and they're worried that the city will do exactly what may occur, that we will flip-flop from one option to another, one change to another, when their primary goal is to ensure we have a timeline and we're going to proceed. And if we feel you guys are going to waver, that's it, we're out. We're going to proceed down the path that we originally planned, take care, and we don't need to work on mitigating any more than we absolutely have to. And that's a tough spot for me, for Sherry, the council, and the rest of the community to be in. I should talk about that. There's another development that's occurring on the west side of Cataract, the Pioneer Square project. which is a very innovative project, a project that is mixed use, housing, hotel, and also has parking requirements. And where the amount of parking that is available or being proposed isn't near what's needed to cover the activity there, which too could add to our neighborhoods if we don't have adequate parking. This option opens the door to facilitate that project. The selling of the land and the revenue that comes from the land may open up an alternate option that I can't go into more details because we haven't proposed it yet to the council, that may add parking further west in downtown to spread the impacts further west from the Cataract area. But it's not, but the timing forces us to make these kind of considerations. And I'll be open, my phone number is public on the website, so is Sherry's. We'll stay after, we'll continue to talk, and we'll continue to take the input of what we should be talking with the Gold Line. And when it comes back to council, having another day to discuss the impacts with the option. So I thank you. Oh, yes, sir.
Thanks. I just had a couple of comments. I mean, I feel very much for the residents. I was an advocate initially for the Gold Line back in 2008 when they had the sales tax. I got very involved when the Metrolink came by my house with their loud horns, and I've totally switched. I advocated against the Gold Line. There's some big changes that have occurred that the city, I don't think you guys have made really clear. The initial, when the city approved this parking structure, it was like a 3-story structure. Metro was paying for it. It was 400 some spaces, which you made, but it was free parking. So, you know, what was 10 years ago was totally different. The Metro keeps changing the rules. The Gold Line is no longer what it was 10 years ago. Now it's flat parking. It's not a built structure. It's charged parking. It's not free. You know, those things all change, and that all becomes part of the equation. It's a multifaceted thing. I feel sorry, and one of the reasons I didn't want the Gold Line to come with the Plan A, I guess what you call it, with the existing off Walnut parking structure, is people like Ali, who came up here and spoke for the residents. He's got a business. He's got employees. He's got a lot of families that are dependent on that business. JV Landscaping next to him has 10, 15 families that are dependent on that income. Those will have to close down. Those businesses, those families are going to lose their income. They have no place to go right now. It's very expensive. We're probably talking, between the two of them, probably 25 families. That's a very big impact to a lot of people, much more so than having some noise or something we have to build a wall. I know it's bad. I know people don't like it. But we also, it's a lose-lose situation, to be honest. The Gold Line is coming. It's going to bring crime. It's going to bring a lot of negatives. We have to try to do the best possible. The parking, the traffic, that has to be addressed. I mean, either, like Chris was saying, no matter where that structure, you know, if the parking structure is on east or west, the Gold Line station is going to be there. The homeless is going to be here. The crime is going to be coming here. It's going to be a lot of negatives. There is positives too. I mean, it's not all negative. Half the people here will probably be for it, no matter what. Even people living in residences that are going to be negatively affected by the parking move. But the offset is there's many people that are also going to be affected. They're very happy that it's moved because it saves their businesses. I know that JV is looking, they spoke at the last council meeting. I believe it was like $6 or $8 million it was going to cost them to try to find something, and it was so far away. It would be, you know, they couldn't find adequate property to buy to be able to move to do their thing. They've been in business here for many, many years, and Ali with his affordable auto care has been here for many years, and he couldn't find any property. So you know, it's a lose-lose. I think personally, and I live, you know, semi-close to there, not, you know, in a townhouse. The city cannot afford $27 million. If everybody throws in $10, we couldn't buy 3 parking spaces. You know, that's a lot of money, and so I have to say I think this is a better solution personally. But I understand we have to make it the best possible for the residences. So I came here basically. I was.
I'd like to address that.
Okay.
The city does not have to come up with $23 million. The city will sell bonds. The city's got a good credit rating. The bond market is the best it's been in decades. This will be amortized over maybe 30 years.
Right, it'd be $1 million a year then. That'd be $1 million a year, right? $1 million a year is probably 10 employees. So we could have 10 employees less, right? I'm just, we're having an argument before. I just want to see my opinion.
Peter, thank you.
I have mainly one question, comment. I understand that seems like no matter what they choose for the parking, we're gonna have a big problem with crime and traffic. But one thing I'm wondering is the impact of the Veterans Park. That seems to be it's supposed to be a place of serenity. How is that gonna be affected, is what I'd like to know. I haven't heard anybody really talk about that. I really think that's an important point, because that's only been here less than maybe 10 years, and it's very important to people in this community. So I wanted to say that.
I agree, and can you put the conceptual plan of Pioneer Park? So regardless of, again, where the parking lot is gonna, or the parking for the station is gonna be, the impact is gonna be there for Freedom Park. So city has hired a landscape architect to try to make the best of the existing landscape and make it, and we're working with Heroes, Gary Enderly, to try to create the same peaceful environment as what's there. I mean, granted, there's gonna be an entryway for vehicles there. Currently, the entryway is on the north side of the park. It's gonna be now on the west side of the park, and it'll be more closer to the monument, but there is some landscaping that will be going in there, and we'll work with the landscape architect on that, as well as with Heroes. So. We do, and that's one of the things that we're addressing with the landscape architect. That's the initial plan had some really nice bulb outs and areas to sit, but when we worked with the Parks and Rec department, they recommended taking out some of those bulb outs because that's where people sleep. Okay.
And let me address that, because you're talking about a broader issue that's impacting our entire community. Homelessness, trash, shopping carts, graffiti, crime. That's the reason why we proposed to council the creation of the Quality of Life Task Force, and not a 6-month blue ribbon commission get together, come up with some recommendations, and away you go, and it's over. But a long-term group that's talking to experts, that's identifying the root causes of how do we tackle this, knowing that, especially with the issues of homelessness, the dramatic legal restrictions that have been put on us by the Ninth Appellate Court with the actions they've taken that have tied the hands. I came from a community that the court just said, you cannot touch your homeless, you must leave them right where they are. Come up with a new plan. And they're coming up with an encampment for 500 homeless folks by their airport. When I came to our community, and the council can attest, and I'm sorry, Council Member Eric Weber is actually here in attendance, not on the video call. I said homelessness is going to be a major issue for our community when we had a very small number at the time relative to our size. I know it, and if we don't handle it now, it will get larger, and to a point that we can't handle it, and the courts will then tie our hands. So we have to be very strategic in how do we approach it. We need to help those who need the help because they are at risk when they're unhoused. But we also have to mirror that with strong accountability and ensure that if you're not going to go with the program that's meant to help you, then you go with some other program that's not in our community. And so those are larger than just what is the implications of the goal line coming to our community. It will bring some more of that here, but we are already experiencing it and we need to deal with it. The council this week actually talked exactly about this issue, both at Pioneer Park and at Freedom Park with the Heroes Monument. And they asked staff to bring forth a staff report talking about cameras and utilizing technology to be able to increase safety. We should be talking about lights as options and a number of other approaches. But still, in the end, it's a problem that's community-wide, and we have to grapple with it. We can't take a problem from one area and push it to another. So,
Quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a way, before you guys make the plan confirmed anything, is there a way that you guys can provide some stats? If this proposed plan has to be the done deal, the traffic is obviously biggest concern. You're talking about 3 street lights from Bonita, Commercial, and Arrow, and that's less than maybe a quarter mile. How are the cars really going to flow correctly? It's going to be very backed up. With Commercial opening into the park and ride, you have that one orange lane that's hosting all the cars, all the bus, foot traffic, basically the entire flow. I don't think that's sufficient. And also maybe Gold Line could provide some study about what are they expecting at each hour, rush hour and off rush hour, how many people are going to come in and out from the transportation, from the Gold Line. So I think a lot of people are fearing this idea because we don't have any certain numbers to go off of. We're just afraid the influx of strangers and not being able to, and keep in mind, the Gold Line is going from 2 a.m. That's past midnight. And you can't control their noise. You obviously can't call the police, when there's someone that's just trying to grab their car and being drunk and whatnot. I don't know. So I think safety control, because the Gold Line goes from 5 a.m. all the way to 2 a.m., no matter if it's on San Dimas or Walnut, it's not a good impact on the residences altogether. And that goes back to the Gold Line station. And I think that's something the city would need to secure for us with the Gold Line. They can't just be like transit prompts all, right? They have to be able to give us a solution and then answer all these concerns before, it's a budgetary issue. Yeah.
Okay, you bring up some very, very good points, and the flow of traffic has been a consideration from the very beginning. That's one of the reasons why we have the bridge over Bonita Cataract. That's nobody wanted this big 30-foot wall there. But one of the considerations with the multiple iterations of different traffic programs and schematics was the impact on the flow of traffic. The traffic signals are synchronized on Commercial, San Dimas Avenue, Bonita, San Dimas Avenue, and also at Bonita Cataract. Because one of the main concerns is we can't have vehicles backing up over the tracks. So the safety of the traffic flow is a primary consideration, and that's why you have the California Public Utilities Commission that actually reviews the plans as well. And that's why no matter what the city tried to influence, the California Public Utilities Commission required that 100-foot median be on either side of the track for safety purposes. So it is foremost in the minds of all the engineers involved.
Yeah, I understand some perspective of the benefits for the business and the potential loss for the private equity holders on the Walnut side. But the businesses close at 5 or 6 p.m. The majority of the stores in downtown San Dimas is hair salons and cafes, and they close at a certain hour. But us residents, we don't close. We don't sleep until maybe 10 or 11, so we're gonna have to hear all these noises with our doors wide open or our fences wide open. So I think in terms of evaluating if it's a lose-lose situation, which area has more residences have a higher impact on our quality life, it's really crucial. And I hope there's some sort of solution in terms of traffic control, security control, noise control. I mean, I think back in 2016, there was a huge fight for the San Dimas residents about the no horn policy, and we didn't get anywhere with that. The horns is getting worse even during pandemic, and everyone's staying at home and no one can sleep. It's nonstop. So overall, as a city in the past 10 years or decade, what have we won? So that's the thing. If this continued to go on, I just think people are not going to be very happy in supporting any decisions as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you. Staff will stay after if you want to come up and talk to us a little bit more. Thank you.